Okay, so this is on page 24, right? Should have copied this. So 20,000 minus the trade-in. Let's just be consistent, right? Like that's how it normally would be. Like you take the car, you subtract the trade-in, you add the taxes, right? And you add the interest that would have been paid on it, right? That's the total cost of buying the vehicle, right? So that ultimately brings you to 17,120, because you do pay the interest as well if you're financing, right? If there's interest, that means that there was some financing happening there. Okay, so really all you have to do is you don't have to calculate the taxes, right? Nothing. All you do is add and subtract the numbers correctly. So these are there to like really test that you understand what should be happening when you have these numbers given, right? Calculate the monthly payment. And I told you that, I hope you remembered that there's no table, nothing was given here, so you can't go to get that rate from the table. But this, careful, this includes interest, right? So you can, to get the payment, we just go 17,120 divided by 60, right? And that's how you get your payment there. And that is 285.33. I will say this includes interest. Therefore, divide by term, right? Like it's already including interest, so you can just say, hey, well, if that's the total you've paid, you can just break it down into 60 payments, and that is your monthly payment there. Okay. If the options were 3,700, determine the sticker price. So the sticker price would just be base plus options plus freight, right? This is like way at the beginning of this booklet. That's where you, and so basically you know what the car is, right? And you know what the options are. That's 3,700. So it's really just 23,700. Sorry, there. That's all you have to do there. But I had a number of students kind of leaving it blank because they are like, oh, wait a minute, like I just remember going to that table and getting my rate to find the payment. Well, not necessarily if it's like this. But yeah, because I made sure it worked out. Well, it's still okay, but on this test or exam, they did not give you a chart or a table, so there was no way to do it. You still figure it out. Right. As this. Okay, yeah. As long as it's consistent, that still works. Yeah. That makes sense, actually. So you divided your interest by 60? Right. Okay. And you still got the same answer. Yeah. That is good. All right. So enough of this. Let's go leasing now. And this is where I wish I could just bring up a radio commercial on leasing, right? And I don't have the radio voice. but you probably hear like lease the new GMC Sierra, right? For 2% down. Yeah, sometimes 0% financing, but sometimes they'll say they mention like a down payment for leasing if you need to put some money down and then you lease. And so that's what we're gonna do here. And I actually, this is old, right? This dates this booklet quite a bit, but 2015, right? Uh, there are some lease payments there. And one thing that you will notice every time is leasing payments are significantly lower than actually buying that car and financing it. And the basic idea why that is because you're only paying like what's happening here? How does a lease work? It's a brand new car. You come and say, hey, I would like to lease that. A lease is just a long time rental, right? It's usually a 2-year lease. So you get a brand new car and they're not charging you on the whole car, right? They're charging you on what do you think that charge is going to be based on? Remember depreciation, right? The dealer is losing, like every time you drive off the lot, that car is losing in value. So they need to make up for that. They need to somehow get that money back. So the payment that you're making is just the amount that it's losing in value and obviously some more, right? Because they want to make money. They don't want to just break even. So a lot of times when you go to a dealership and you buy a used car, it's actually an old lease, right? Like you're like, oh, it looks pretty good, right? Because somebody drove it for 2 years, most likely a business person, because they can write it off from their taxes. That's why for them it's worth it. And so you go and they basically still make money because not everybody's willing to buy a brand new car. No, but not everybody can afford it. So they're like, hey, let's lease it, make some money there, get it back, and then we'll sell it used and still make money. You know what I mean? So they're double dipping almost. That's what they're doing. So keep that in mind. Um, so it's similar to renting a car. I'm gonna have my highlighter here on standby just so you know if you want to do the same, right? Similar to renting, right? It's similar to renting, but it's number of years, usually 2. You're paying, right? You're paying for depreciation and the use of vehicle, right? You have the option to buy at the end of lease, right? So they will always, most likely, your contract that you're signing will have a guaranteed depreciation value. So let's say you're actually going for like the cruise here, right? Let's say when you're driving it off the lot, it's worth 20 grand. They will have on the contracts like, hey, if you're done your lease, you have to pay us $16,000 if you want to buy it, right? So you know what it is when you come back, right? It's not just going to be thrown at you at the end because they do the depreciation. They have a pretty good idea of what the car will be worth down the road, okay? And so some definitions that go with leasing, there's a down payment made. And here I have to look at my little jot notes. I added stuff here. Uh, under under the option to buy the car, that way I will leave for now, but the down payment is not taxed. You need to make sure you remember that because when we do questions down the road, I see a lot of students adding taxes to the down payment, but you don't. Lease payment amount paid per month. They will in our unit it will be a monthly amount. This is taxed and it's taxed 12%. It's GST and PST. It's gonna bite me because I used to do 13%, so I had to change all my answer key to 12, right? They changed it a number of years ago. The term of the lease is the number of years you have the car and make payments. That one makes sense, most likely. Residual value, okay? The adjusted price due to depreciation of the vehicle after the lease. The cost, right here it is. It's the cost to buy the car at the end of the lease. usually stated as a percentage. This is taxed as well, so you need to make sure you have that. So payment is taxed, right? Payment is taxed. Residual value is taxed, but the down payment is not taxed. Okay. I will just add here guaranteed residual value. I will just put this stated as a dollar amount. Sometimes a question will give you a percentage, like that it's worth 60% of what it started with, but a guaranteed residual value is usually stated as a dollar amount. So don't let those words scare you. It's just, what is it worth at the end? Okay. The formulas, I would highly recommend you have these on your study sheet. Okay. Total lease cost, right? If they ask you what's the total cost of leasing, down payment plus total payments, like this is the total amount of payments you will have made, plus the mileage charge. What in the world is mileage? Well, miles, right? Miles is distance. So pay close attention because there's not much room to add this here, but mileage, companies, like it's a dealership, right? Leasing is done by a dealership. They put a certain limit on the amount of kilometers you can drive. So, right, mileage, I will just maybe add that here. Limit of kilometers driven. Okay, that's what mileage is. It's the limit of kilometers driven. So if they say, hey, you can drive 15,000 kilometers a year, right? They'll say, hey, you took it out for 2 years, therefore you should not have driven more than 30,000 kilometers. What happens if you're over, Mr. Dirksen? They charge you for every single kilometer that you've driven. And there's a rate that's also in the contract, and you will see examples that we will be doing examples like that. But the total cost would be these three components. Let's say there is no mileage charge mentioned. Then it's just down payment and total payments, right? Let's say there is no down payment. Then it just be whatever is left, right? So that's how my formulas work. I should also be doing this here, mileage. This is taxed. Okay, the mileage cost is also taxed, so you got to remember that. And it's 12%. So leasing is either 12% or no tax, right? That's all. Remember that with leasing. You don't have to worry about 7 or 5 or anything. You don't have to worry about safety, no trade-in, nothing like that, okay? So here we go, alternative. This is just literally, I just took this down from some sources online, right? Leasing is really a long-term rental. You do not own the asset. When the lease ends, right? When the lease ends, you have three options: return the vehicle, lease a new vehicle, purchase the vehicle at the predetermined percentage of the original price. There's the guaranteed residual value. So you have three options at the end of the lease. You can just walk away, you can lease a new one, or you can buy that lease. Okay. Since you're not writing anything down, I'll just keep going. However, when you're leasing a vehicle, the following realities or responsibilities, right, must be considered. Okay. And I will highlight here the customer is responsible for maintenance, so oil changes, right? Repairs, insurance, unreasonable wear and tear, extra kilometers, and so forth. Okay, so you're responsible for these things. Like you have to insure it. Unreasonable wear and tear is like if you go off-roading and you completely bust the paint, like there are chips everywhere on the paint, and you have your dog running all over the car, and the dog like tears up the seats, you'll have to pay for it, right? That's not included. Leasing is another way of managing a huge cost of owning a good, reliable automobile. Advantages and disadvantages of leasing. I will talk about that tomorrow, okay? Because I want to get to some math here. Let me tell you, I have a lot to say about advantages and disadvantages. So we're going to make a little chart as well for that. As you can see here on page 27, right, leasing, we'll talk about advantages and disadvantages. That we'll do tomorrow. So just put that away for now, because I will not cover leasing completely today. I'll just get you started, okay? So go to page 28. That's when we're going to start doing some math. Have a calculator ready. Okay, so we have a minivan. Okay, go ahead and do it, Griffin. Okay, so I'm going to highlight again here a little bit. A minivan sells for $28,800. It leases for $479 per month plus tax. Okay, so usually that is how it's written anyways. Like it's 40, like the monthly payment plus tax. And the term is 24 months. There's a down payment, right, of $1,500 required. The guaranteed, there's that word there, guaranteed residual value is 62% of the sales price. Okay, and that's prior to taxes. And now we're going to answer a whole bunch of questions here. A, calculate the total monthly lease payment. The monthly lease payment. So what they're saying here is payment is going to be $479, right, per month, and you're going to tax that. Okay, so 479 times 1.12. That's the quick way of doing that, right? It's $536.48 per month after tax. Okay, so that's what they meant to ask in A there. B, calculate the total amount paid by the end of the lease. So I call this total lease. Okay, so we will put, we'll take the down plus total payments plus mileage. No mileage mentioned in this case. So we just take the down payment, which is $1,500, plus, how do we find the total payments? I just do this. Careful with the term. In this case, it says that it's 24 months, but it could be in years. This could be given in years. But that means that we have 24 payments times the 536.48. So you've already taxed it, right? When you buy, this has tax, so that's the payment we use here. There is no mileage charge, so we'll just maybe say plus 0, right? So then it's 1,500 plus, we'll figure out what that is. 12,000 875.52, and that gives us 14,375.52. That's the total cost of the lease. Right? See? Go ahead. See, it's going to get a little crowded here, so I'm going to try to use, right, I'm going to make a line here. Keep it separate. So C is asking, calculate the total residual value including tax. So residual value is, how do you get that? If you look up here in the question, it says it's 62% of the sales price. And what was the sales price at the beginning? It's 28,500. So you find 62%, which is 0.62, and you multiply it by the 28,500, which is 17,670. So this is what the car is worth at the end of the 24 months. You have to tax it. And who are you buying this from? Dealer, right? So what's the taxes for dealers? Always 12%, right? So times 1.12. So that's 19,790 and 40 cents. That answers the question to C. So watch for the wording. If it had said before taxes, this would have been it right here. If it's including taxes or after taxes, you got to add that step of 1.12, right? D, calculate the total cost of the vehicle if it is purchased outright. That means that you buy it at the end of the lease. Okay. So total here is, in this case, is lease plus purchase, right? And that would give us, the total lease is 14,375.52 plus 19,790 and 40, which is the total cost of purchasing it. So we're just figuring out how much have you put down for that car at the end of that whole at the end of the lease, and you're buying it. I get 34,165.92. That's the total cost of leasing and purchasing it. I can tell you this, folks, most of the time, like this, the D is very, it's not very common to ask that. The question will probably ask the total lease or what the residual value would be after tax. Like that's very important. This last step here is I just wanted you to see how much money you would put into that car if you combine the lease and the buyout. Sometimes it's called a buyout, sometimes it's an outright purchase. Just read carefully, okay? All right, I'm gonna skip this one. Skip or omit, so you can put that down so you're not thinking, did I miss something, right? We're gonna go straight to example 4. So omit example 3 as well, or skip, right? So you're not worried about missing anything. I might do it later, probably not. So let's go straight to example 4 here on page 29. And that'll be the last thing we do today, and then tomorrow you'll have some chance to work on it yourself. And we're going to put down on the side here mileage. So if you want that question that includes a mileage charge, this would be it. So on page 29, folks, so wake up. This is going to be important, okay? In Brandon, Manitoba, a new luxury car has a purchase price of $24,000 before taxes. It can be leased for 36 months, okay? That's important. For 310 plus tax. And you need a down payment of $4,000. Okay. The residual value is 75% of the original price. So I'm just going to highlight residual value being 75%. And it says here the lease agreement allows for 12,000 kilometers per year. Right? That's what you're allowed to drive. If the vehicle is returned and has 41,200 kilometers on it, calculate the total cost of the lease by the end of the term. I will add something to this, okay? You pay, or the term states that you pay 15 cents per kilometer over limit. Okay, so if you go over the limit, the contract states that you'll be paying 15 cents for every kilometer that you surpass. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to calculate the mileage cost here. Okay, mileage cost, if you want to put it that way. And I will go with 41,200 kilometers. That's what you actually drove, right? And you're going to go minus how much were you allowed to drive? Well, you were allowed to drive 12,000 per year. And this was a 36-month lease, so that's 3 years, right? So technically what you were allowed to drive is 3 years times 12,000 kilometers. This is what you were allowed. So we're going to go see if we can tell that we've gone over. I don't know if you can, but 3 times 12,000 is 36,000 kilometers. This is what you are allowed, right? This is what you're allowed to drive, and you drove this much. So obviously you're over. So we're going to find out how many kilometers over have you gone, right? So go 41,200 minus 36,000, and that is 5,200 kilometers over limit. Okay, so again, what you actually drove minus the allowed kilometers, which is 36,000, taking the difference gives you 5,200 kilometers that you're over the limit, past 36,000. Okay, so the cost now is 5,200 multiplied by 15 cents, because that's what the cost is based on the contract. and you figure that out. And it's $780. This is taxed as well. We're going to add that step of 873.60. This is the mileage cost. Okay? And you don't have to do it exactly the way I did it, right? But you need to be able to figure out how much have you gone over. Okay? So the total cost of the lease, total, I think I'm going to introduce another step here. Hold on. I will recommend you find the payment first. Payment is $310 plus tax. I'm going to run out of time here. That is my payment. That's important to me. Let's just finish this question before we go, okay? There's one more line that I need to add here. So total would be, remember the formula, down payment, which is $4,000, no taxes on that, plus my payments here would be 36 months times 347.20, right? Plus the mileage, which I already figured out before. And this is an extreme case. Like this question has all of the components that you need to be aware of. And I'm just going to do one more here. 36 times 347.2 is 12,499.20 plus 873.60. That is a total of 17,372.80. You are saved by the bell. Okay, so